How has music impacted your life? Have you ever thought about the importance of music? Being part of a, I guess, metal community, for me, music is so absolutely important. And there's nothing quite like going to a hard rock concert, metal concert, to actually experience that feeling. So music has always been very important in my life. I actually was named originally after a classical play. And at some point, also due to my musical friends, my name got changed. So actually, I used a nickname. The nickname was something which stuck on Facebook. Then people actually couldn't say it properly. And then people started using it. So basically, my friends started using it, introducing me to other people by calling me Lady Lexi. And well, Lady Lexi was born, and nowadays I go by the first name of Lexi. But yes, even when I got got to learn sign language, music, that's what it represents. That was my name, so that's kind of cool. But going back to the importance of music, why am I talking about this today? Because I just returned from a concert. Now, you probably see a name like here. He plays at the moment in the Dead Daisies. So the Dead Daisies is a band which, well, a lot of really good musicians who are used to playing music in the 80s. Think bands like Whitesnake, for instance. They came together and they create music just like the way it's supposed to be. At least that's according to me. So a lot of music nowadays is sort of reinvented, as in people take the old songs and then they put a different rhythm or something else underneath. But these guys from the Dead Daisies actually write original music, and it's so good. So going there is always so much fun. And to get back to the importance of music, when I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to talk about this week? Because I always look back on the week, I realized that much of the events this week actually were inspired one way or another by music. So just to start somewhere random, I did this interview with La Viro. Now, La Viro has been a friend of mine since 12 years. We met one another. No, did we? I don't know. we talked about it. I started sending her cards when she was in the hospital, but one of the, yeah, now I know why I'm getting confused. And yes, this is live, so if you're wondering why didn't she cut it out, well, because it's live. So here's the thing, I didn't know that we actually went to the same concert. I'm pretty sure that's the thing what I'm talking about, but I had sent her cards because, well, you don't know, she has been ill most of her life, Crohn's disease. So she never knew how old she was going to get. And well, she is the person, and whenever you meet her, she will be singing. She will be singing everywhere, whether it's in a restaurant, and it's not at low volume. We're talking at high volume. Anyway, we are concert friends, and we are also road buddies, which means that we love to go places together. I even was featured in a clip, in a video from her, which is going to be out there again. It's the Christmas song. It's kind of goofy, and it's meant to, you know, when people feel all alone during Christmas, to actually have them feel better and cheer them up. So it's a nice song in that aspect. It's yeah, it's pretty fun. But going back, I mean, I've met a lot of people through concerts, especially in the last couple of decades. I think, yeah, if I say the last 15 years, that would probably be correct. And I actually wasn't the only one talking about that year that I got to see this guy, John Corabi, together with Chuck Garrick. He plays in the Beastie Boys, and the Beastie Boys, yeah, it's a little bit late. In Beasto Blanco, it's actually his band. And I remember listening to the first songs, and it was an EP. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And today I got to see him, and it's a full-blown band, including the daughter of Alice Cooper. I didn't know. I had no clue. But it was so amazing to see the entire band and just have fun and experience how great it all was. And it was like, oh, why didn't I go see them like a week before? You know, then I would have had two immensely great shows. Now, in case you were wondering, why is she stuttering and everything? I guess I'm a little bit tired because I just came back from the concert. So I didn't see the first band, White Lion. It's not that I didn't want to, but I had to choose some priorities. And while playing drums was my priority. So by the time I left and I got there, I actually got to see Beasto Blanco, which, like I said, was really cool. And after that, the Dead Daisies. So getting back to 2009, that was a moment that was really defining for me. And the funny thing was, I actually said so to Chuck. And straight after me, there's a lady. She just comes, you know, and starts talking. And she said, well, I remember seeing you touring with ESP. ESP was the Eric Singer project. So that was Chuck Garrick, Bruce Kulick, John Corabi, and Eric Singer project. I got to meet someone, Sandra. She became a dear friend of mine. We spent a lot of time together, especially when I was working. And one of the locations I used to go to was close to where she lived. And we talked about so many things, but we met up during ESP, and then we saw some more concerts from ESP. And well, she was into Alice Cooper and the whole band, the music. And she introduced me to so many more bands, and that was so cool. Now, seeing John Corabi that first day, or that concert, I actually went there because Bruce Kulick was playing in there. And I'd been following Bruce Kulick ever since he left Kiss. And I wanted to see I followed him, and he had so many amazing CDs. There were so many bands. So I had to go see him. Let's put it that way. And that's what I did. And then I was so surprised because what I hadn't expected was to hear all the songs that I knew, because I didn't know that John Corabi was actually in the band, in a lot of bands that I knew. So I think I had practically all his music, or I had all his music. So I knew that Bruce Kulick was in Union. I loved Union, Bruce Kulick automatically follows I know his CDs, and I had no clue, really, no clue that the guy I saw over there, John Grubby, was actually in a lot of those bands, including Motley Crue, and I was kind of surprised. So I was looking at him, and there, someone was standing across on stage, and whereas Bruce Kulick, as far as I know, has no tattoos at all. Yeah, there are musicians out there who do not have tattoos. I guess it's getting less and less, but there are those out there. I'm always surprised when I meet up with musicians without any tattoos. And then there was John Corabi, next to Bruce Kulick, and on the outside they seem like totally two opposites. So I was look at those tattoos and piercings, and it made quite the impression on me. And of course, I knew all the songs. I could sing all the songs along, and that surprised me too. So yes, they were doing covers too, but I still was surprised. It was like, huh. Now, anyway, so I referenced that concert to Chuck. I said, yeah, I saw you in the Pul in Ude in 2009. I said, and looking at you and what you've done with the band, I said, this is so amazing, so amazing. So the girl next to me, or behind me, she started talking about that same tour, which was kind of funny. Now, fast forwarding, later when I was outside talking to some people, well, we actually got to talk inside the club. And, well, one of the guys from the audience approached me because he thought that my looks were so cool. So I said, what do you like about it? So he liked my boots. So I guess they're comparable with Dr. Martens. He liked the brace that I'm wearing. So it's got the pinup that you're watching actually right now, right on there. This is the new version, and then there's the old version too. So the new version is on top of the brace, and the old version is at the bottom of the brace. I'm still hoping that with my new braces, they're on there too, because it's kind of cool. So when we at some point were outside, we were talking about the importance of music. And one of the guys, his name is Roy, he told me about how at some point he got so ill during COVID. And of course, he's not the only one. We all know that. And apparently he came out a different person, remembering old music, but also more aware of the importance of music. I thought that was pretty incredible. And I guess everyone has probably a turning point in life where they become more aware of what always has been important to them. And music was really important to me. So all three of us, so Roy and Tony and me, we were talking, and we are we are the same age. There's 1 year age difference between the three of us, and that's it. So we got to talk about MTV when it was still music. We got to talk about Sky Channel. And, when he talked about the importance of music, I said, well, that's not that weird or strange, because back then we were in our teens. So I remember that satellite television, it came up somewhere around 1984. Yes, that says something about my age. And it was so cool. All the hard rock fans, they know Mick Wall, and they know the other shows too. And once a week, we would sit in front of the television to watch that 1 hour show, because, well, it was the only chance that we had to actually see all those bands. So I guess that White Lion was airing back then. It was before the Dead Daisies. So Alice Cooper, Chuck Garrick, plays in the band of Alice Cooper. He plays bass. Then we have, John Corabi played for a short while in Mötley Crüe, but we all remember Mötley Crüe. So I shared a story. So I shared a story about being in class, and I said, yeah, people all knew who we were as metalheads, because I would wear these leopard skin pants, white with black, and then I would have this shirt which was red orange with black, also leopard print. And we were like this recognizable bunch of people. So I actually didn't really talk to the other three, but we knew one another. And for a lot of hard rock fans, metalheads, it's the same story. We grew up in a certain way, and we recognize so many things. So when one of them was talking about the emotional part, and he said, everything, every song has a memory to it, I completely understood what he was saying. And I remember back in that time that, I would take off my glasses, and then I would be lying on the bed listening. And because when I took off my glasses and it was sort of dark, and I would have a few lights on, or maybe some neon lights or something, I just saw the colors and maybe some beams, because I couldn't focus on it. And all considered, it gave a very specific vibe, at least on my end. You could basically say that I used the music and everything else, if I think about it now, to get in some sort of meditational state. And it was just, you would just listen to the music, to how everything was played, the how will I say, the vibes to it. There was so much attention in how they played the guitar. It was not just like how good someone was, but it was also the emotion in there, in the guitar, in the singing, in so many aspects. And of course, there was sort of a dress code, but that's a different kind of story. Well, it's not a different kind of story, because that defined me for who I was. So back in the days when I went to high school, yes, music meant a lot to me. I think I only went to two concerts actually. One was Vengeance, a Dutch band, and the other one, and by the way, I had a ringing in my ears for 4 days because I didn't know about earplugs back then. And yes, I saw Kiss actually perform at the beach. And just recently I saw some pictures, and that was kind of cool to actually see it. I shared it on Instagram on my stories, and I downloaded the video. Yeah, that was so cool. And that was when Eric Carr was still alive, who, of course, is my inspiration. So yes, I learned to play the piano when I was 3 years old, and then later on I learned to play guitar. And I always wanted to play drums, but my parents said, no way you're going to play drums. So when I started living on my own, And especially since I had to retrain my hands and my wrists. And that's when I started to learn to play drums. Little did I know that the rubber mats on there didn't dampen the sound the way I had expected to. And I also had no clue there was straw between the ceiling and the floor. So at first, my neighbors loved me, and then they didn't love me anymore. And then my father was kind enough to actually make sure that there was a room with isolation against the sound. So that, and I got an electronic kit, so that worked out just fine. Getting back to the importance of music, even when I was playing drums and I had these classes, I didn't go to concerts anymore. And part of this was, well, in 91, there was grunge, and, or say in the 90s, there was grunge, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I guess in retrospect, also a lot of bands, they got families, children, so they stopped touring altogether. And for me, I started working. So almost straight after high school, where I still was identified as a metalhead and was able to show it, wearing concert shirts and all. And even though I didn't go to concerts, there were shops and they had these amazing shirts. And unfortunately, I got rid of them because someone said something to me, someone who obviously didn't understand the importance of shirts. And it's kind of funny because when I was talking to those guys today, they said, "Yeah, we have stacks of shirts." And I completely understood them. They're sort of like collectibles nowadays, and you show, like, hey, I was here, at some point. So getting back to the 90s and later on, working, later going to the Academy of Arts, yeah, there was still, I still listened to music. Back then we had the Walkman and the Discman. Yeah, I know, I'm old. Internet wasn't there, streaming wasn't there. So basically, we would listen to one another's tapes if they knew that you were a metalhead or something. At some point, I remember there was this CD store and you could loan CDs, which was kind of cool. And that's the way I got to listen to a lot of other bands. So that was quite nice. And actually, that we're still talking about the 90s, I suppose, back then. But yes, at some point, I don't know, life took over. Um, in my case, I got in relationships too. And when it comes to authenticity, when I started working, we had to live up to a certain dress code. And that was one of the things that we talked about. And I explained to someone else just recently that it felt so uncomfortable to actually be showing who you were, like wearing concert shirts. You didn't do that. When you went to work, it was, you had to look, well, I'm not going to say that when you are wearing concert shirts that it's not like you've not taken care of yourself, because you have. That doesn't define whether you're taking care of yourself or not, but it was the sort of like a status kind of thing, the jackets, the suits, all those kind of things. And the time that I actually did wear a concert shirt because I was going to a concert, that felt really weird. It was like, this is not the right environment to actually do so. Now, the funny thing was that the guys I was talking to, they actually did do it. They did wear concert shirts to work. And well, that was new for me. Nowadays, of course, I don't mind I'm doing this live right now and I'm wearing a concert shirt. So when it comes to authenticity, I had to learn a lot of things. Now, for me, going back to 2009, apart from that being pretty much the first concert I went to, with the exception of going to a concert from Bruce Kulick in 95. I'm sorry, hang on. It changed everything. It changed everything because I realized I knew the music. So I went frantically through all the CDs, like, oh, 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 listening to them. And here is the thing, where I used to listen to music all the time, whether I was on my own or not, that sort of stopped when I started living together. First of all, they didn't like the music. And second of all, they didn't like the music. So then you start to learn that you only listen to music when you're on your own, which is most of the time in the car. And whereas I used to use Walkmans and Discmans when I was traveling back in the days, that wasn't something that I did once I had my own place. Well, when I wasn't living together and I wasn't married, yes, but after that, no. So I guess that music still was important, but like the frantically listening to it and talking about it like we used to do in high school, no, that was totally different. Now, because of that concert, like I said, I met that friend. She took me to other bands. She also took me to festivals, which was kind of nice, really nice, which got me to listen to other bands too. And I have to say that over the years, I got to collect, as in meet up with other people. So a lot of my friends actually are concert friends, and they are like all throughout the country. But no one is like really close by. That's a little bit of a shame. But yes, we recognize one another. There's this instant, recognition because we love the same music. And like I said, there is a certain atmosphere among metalheads, hard rock fans, if we can describe it like that. There are a lot of people my age. Nowadays, there are also younger people. So the generation behind me. And of course, there's the generation from the really little ones. You are growing up with music too. And we understand one another. It's really, usually it's really laid back. But for some reason, whenever I go to a Dead Daisies concert, and today I was reminded of that again, something seems to happen. And today there was also someone who started shouting. So the singer, John, he stopped the concert, wanted to know if everything was good. And then someone started singing, just look at the bright side of life. And that was so funny. So we all started doing that. And then at some point, John said, "Hey, that's my job. I'm the singer here." But, well, the guy seemed to be good again. And that's actually very unusual, but it does happen every now and then that someone decides to make a scene for some reason. And I can always appreciate it when the band then stops playing until it's resolved again. And I've seen that a few times now. So yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. But normally it's like I said, very laid back, and we all have a good time. And me talking to other fans that's no exception. Now, getting back to the whole authenticity thing and being ourselves, I guess I got to discover myself more and what I deemed important when I saw them back in 2009 and started experimenting with my looks. I always wanted tattoos, but it was kind of new to me because I didn't know other people who actually had tattoos. And once I started to, I think I started with the piercings. And then at some point, something happened. And I was very upset, which was a few years later. And then I was like, I'm going to get a tattoo right now. Because if I don't, I'm going to do something to myself, which is not going to be good. So I found a tattoo shop and they put a couple of stars on the inside of my wrist. And that sort of calmed me down again. It's but those were the first tattoos. And I love it that these were stars because stars mean so much to me. They always have done so. I'm not sure if it started with KISS, as in Ace Frehley, Space Ace. It was the spaceman, stars. But yes, their stars nowadays represent success to me and also the goal to gain success. But stars have, there's something magical about stars. So yeah, stars are really my thing. And, from one thing led to another. And actually, well, it's upside down, I'm aware. But if you look at this part, then yeah, well, this is hard, actually. Well, you see this flower and everything. Well, it's sort of like a sleeve on the inside of my arm. Well, sleeve is normally an entire literal sleeve, which actually are a couple of tattoos. Well, not a couple, multiple tattoos, which are related to the dead daisies. So at some point, a photographer came and he made some shots. And then I walked over to him and I said, "Hey, I got a tattoo, which is from the Dead Daisies." And then I showed him how different musicians in the band had drawn something on my arm. And then, of course, I had to say something in the camera. I had no clue he was also recording video, but whatever you want. So he asked me, "Is it a good concert?" I said, "Yes, it was amazing." And I know there are people who have a hard time dealing with these kind of changes. I'm not the person that I was before. I think the concert changed a lot. And apart from that concert, I got reconnected with listening to music. But apart from that, I started working for myself a few years later. So authenticity was always important for me, but it became more and more and more important. It's actually the theme of my life. So when I got to meet the band Bisto Blanco today, which was kind of cool. So you could get a VIP ticket to meet them. I got the VIP ticket, and then something happened which I still don't understand. It's had nothing to do with music. It is, in fact, the quite opposite. But I'm going to mention it anyway because I still don't understand it. So what happened was there were some people on the stairs and they'd thrown over at least one or multiple cups of beer. So a lot of people tend to put it down on the steps of stairs. It happens. But they got knocked over, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't just one because 3 steps were soaking wet and it was going down, and you could literally see it was raining beer. And I looked at it. I looked at the girl from the merchandise because it leaked straight onto the merchandise. And I was like, we need to do something. So I looked at people, go do something. And then they sort of moved towards the bar, but that was it. And for me, the walking is a little bit more difficult compared to others because of my balance, especially when it's dark. So I didn't know how quickly I had to rush over to the bar and get their attention. It took them a while before they actually realized what I wanted and needed because there was a lot of noise going on. I think that the Daisies just had started playing. And then at some point, finally, someone started to see it. And then by that time, the merch girl, Sarah, she stood next to me and already said, okay, I've already got this for you. And then later on, I think way later on, they came with a stack of towels and other stuff for her so she could dry the whole thing. Anyway, the meet and greet. I didn't have the meet and greet because I was actually waiting for the meet and greet, but then I saw what was happening and I was like, oh, I need to help her out. So, merchandise is not cheap. They need to take that merchandise which has not been sold to the next venue, and it's an important source of extra income next to the tickets. So I was like, okay, this needs to be saved. And well, when I talked to Chuck Garrick at the end of the concert of the Dead Daisies, I said, yeah, I missed the meet and greet. And later on, Sarah pointed me out. I said, yeah, I was helping her out because your merchandise was getting soaking wet with beer. And I said, that couldn't happen. And that was the thing which was surprising to me, that no one did anything to help her out. I mean, some people saw it and they said, well, move something, to that side or to the other side. But actually doing something, getting a towel, rushing over to the bar, doing something. So basically, from what I've understood, is that especially a number of posters got ruined. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But I do know that when I met up with the guys and they were waiting at the tour bus, hopefully to see John Corabi, and I already said, well, if you want to meet the guy, you best do so on solo tours because he's very approachable, but not when he's in the Dead Daisies playing. So yeah, I did wave to him. He did wave back. I'm pretty sure he recognized me, whether it's because of the shirt or because I also took a number of pictures and I sent those to him with a professional camera so he could use them if he wanted to. But yes, when I was waiting outside and talking to the guys, and that's, like I said, there is this instant connection when you're talking to other people. And this was funny because, we were the same age and we were reminiscing about how we grew up with the music and everything. And then all of a sudden, I saw the bass player from the band. So I approached him and I said, I got this VIP, but I didn't get the chance because I had to help out the merch girl. And apparently he knew about it. So I said, yeah. And I helped, sort of save the merchandise because no one wanted to do something. So that changes the tone instantly. It's no longer like musician and fan. It's like we are human beings and we're helping one another. So I said to the bass player, I said, well, I realize the importance of merchandise. I know, I've helped out more friends. And then he started asking about what I was doing. So I said, well, I'm a coach. I teach people to speak up and speak out. And I help them to get perspective again on life. So there are a lot of people who at some point don't, it's like they've given up on life or they're about to give up on life. And yeah, he just mentioned a few things, including anxiety and substance abuse, which of course are things when you don't want to deal with mindsets, then what do? You turn to something which helps you numb the pain. And I guess that music was a way for me to cope with things too, because music gave me the opportunity to just be away from everything and not having to think about anything anymore. Now, the funny thing was that the other guy who was also there, so the two guys I met up, one was Dutch and the other one was from the US. And well, a lot of the things that we've experienced in the Netherlands, they experienced in the US too, including the shirt and all that stuff. And well, I'm not sure why I was going to talk about that guy. And I'll probably get back to it in a little bit. So I'll just move back to the musician. And what really got to me was how he actually could appreciate what I was doing. So when people ask my name, I say it's Lexi. It's Lady Lexi. Lady Lexi is the brand. So that probably already gives them the opportunity to ask, okay, so what are you doing? But I'm so used to saying Lady Lexi because that's normal at concerts and for friends that, but I also want my friends to know you can just call me Lexi. You don't have to call me Lady. Just call me Lexi. But if you want to do it all together, it's Lady Lexi. But that connection, that one moment when he said, I'll make sure to follow you. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to. But yes, it's, I don't know, something connected on another level. Just like I had experienced with the singer, that because I helped him out, it's like you are sort of connecting on a different level. And that basically brings me to something that happened earlier this week, and which I probably have been talking about already, is I had to deal with a scammer. So I wasn't scammed as in no money has been taken from me, but I was talking to someone who I believe to be a musician. And, when I saw something which had to do with the death of a different musician, I said something about the importance of life because we never know how old we are going to get. And at some point there was a reaction to that comment, and well, I commented on that, and then silence, and then all of a sudden there was a message, and I was like, okay, and it really seemed genuine. So, in my enthusiasm, I was like, well, I explained a few things, and then at some point I said, well, if you want to, maybe we could do an interview. Now, having told you about how I interact with other musicians on what kind of level, it's usually the level of helping one another out. So human to human, not like there's someone here and I'm over there. So it didn't even seem that off to me, but I was on the other hand like, wow, it will be cool if this happens. I mean, huge opportunity. But then somehow the interview got changed into a meet and greet, and I was like, this is weird, because then you assume that I'm a fan of your music. Now, I do like the music of this musician, absolutely. I've when I was in my teens, yes, I listened to them too. They were on MTV too, and they were on Sky Channel too. Actually, they were still on Countdown. That was a typical Dutch program too. And then all of a sudden, meet and greet, management. Well, I can understand that to some degree, because sometimes you want to do things through the proper channels, especially when you're well known. And then all of a sudden there was cost, there was money. And I was like, that's weird. Now, they said, send an email to management. And I said something about the cost. And I said, no worries, they will explain it to you. And I've reduced it. And so there was a number. The number was not like, okay, I can't do that, or it was exceptionally high. It was more like, but this is weird. So I asked them more about it. I became reluctant because I was like, this is not normal. And then all of a sudden the attitude changed. And I recorded this video, and I literally said in that video, it's like someone wants to put me in a timeout, sit on the steps, go stand in the corner. I was like, this is not normal. And I really had to think about it, like, what's going on? Because it felt like, do I really need to explain to you why this is so important? But anyway, then management said, okay, this is the amount, and we want your identity card. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to give my identity card to someone I've never seen. So I want to know, who is this person? Record a little video, record a little message, but I need to know something, and not just the typing, but something for real. Well, pretty quickly after, I figured out that this was a scam artist. And, well, he done a great job. But of course, when it comes to music, I've been listening to their songs. That was one of the reasons why I went on Instagram to check some things out. Saw that post about that other musician having passed on. And at some point I realized that their drummer, actually, he was their second drummer. So there are 3 drummers in their entire career. Watching those interviews, he said, I've always been in good health. Well, good health, he had a drinking problem. He was addicted to booze, and he stopped, and then the pool would get there again, and then he stopped, and and then he would say, I know how to live healthy. And he said, I was so fortunate, but he also talked about, you never know how things are going. And at some point I was like, oh, you didn't realize that you were one of those people who was going to die early. So he was like 61 when he passed away, actually from heart problems. And prior to it, he started breaking bones. And I was like, yeah, looking at that face, you could see really the cheekbones and how skinny he looked. And it was someone who had these very expression, the eyes which were very expressional. I'm not sure I used the right word, but the expression in there was immense. Expressive, that's the word that I was looking for. And that last interview that he gave, was actually a very long interview. Then you could see the difference, and it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, there was someone who wasn't looking too good. But it did make an impact on me, seeing it and then listening to their music again and then realizing, oh, but the drummer passed away at the beginning of this year. So for me, a lot of things have happened related to music. And one of the things that I have noticed is whenever I go to the US, I seem to meet up with people who, are around the same age as I am, who got introduced to the same music I did. And I said to the guy from the US, how I got to start speaking English. I said, I checked out the words, the lyrics from Kiss. I had no clue what it meant, but at least not that what they actually wanted to say. But it helped me already learn English. So I knew a lot of English words before I actually got taught English in school. We got to reminisce a little bit about other people who now are posting about the 80s on Instagram. And it's so funny when you see certain things, because you can talk about that age. Like I said, Walkmans, Discmans, MTV. There are a few things which we have experienced, like going down the slide, an iron slide, and not having to worry if your knees were scratched open. A lot of things which are not done nowadays. They were, they didn't know any better. So it was like, well, you want to go play outside, although my mom was always careful. But the safety that's out there nowadays, especially in playgrounds, and what I mean is not necessarily what other people are doing, but the equipment in the playgrounds themselves, it's not comparable nowadays with how it used to be, because how it used to be was, okay, there's something, please use it. That's about it. It was sturdy, though. It was good quality, but never mind the burn marks or other stuff. And when you talk to someone who comes from a different country, and yet you get to experience that same vibe, that is cool. I cannot tell you anything else than how cool that is. So for me, music is about emotions. It's about relating to what certain lyrics are saying. It's about resonating on that vibe, especially done with feeling. And listening in the car on the way over to the concert to that other band, I realized it instantly hit me when I was listening to the music, like, these are people who not just play technical guitar, but it's the emotions which are in there. I have to say, I was kind of surprised to find out that one of the musicians I'm following now, so we're talking about Scorpions, by the way, is also into the whole sort of Eastern philosophy, including meditation. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't see that one coming, because normally when I talk to other people who are into metal, it does not relate to my field of work or my beliefs, for that matter. So that was kind of weird, actually. But yeah, it was, listening to it. And one of the things that I saw was the smile on his face. So this guitar player is like 76 years old now. His name is Rudolf Schenker. And throughout his career, you can actually see that smile on his face. And I was like, wow. And then you listen to the interviews and he's talking about joy. And at some point, and I really loved that, he talked about the difference between me and a lot of other people is I kept focusing on that one thing. So, of course, people wanted him to become something different other than a musician. But he always kept focusing on it. And he said, I wanted a group of people around me who we could be friends with and have fun with. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then getting back to what I experienced today, being part of the audience and meeting up with people I've never met up with before, it was, I don't know how to say it, but it's like coming home. That's the feeling. It's like, okay, it's safe hanging out with these people. We all want the same thing. We share the same love for music. We go down memory lane, which is cool. And for each and every one of us, music has made such an impact in our lives. And then when we also linked it to authenticity and how we express ourselves and how we show up. And I know that there are a lot of, let's say, the musician friends, when they see me, probably not the ones who don't have any tattoos or piercings, but the ones who do, they actually appreciate seeing me with the piercings and everything and the tattoos, because somehow it relates to them. But it also shows me for who I am. And that's why it was so cool that someone came up to me and actually started speaking about it. So that was kind of nice. So today was not about clarity per 3, except maybe for the fact that this has given me clarity. But it was about music and how it has affected not just me, but also others in their lives, but also how it was of great importance for me this week. And not, of course, only this week, but most of my life. Well, actually, always in my life, because my mom played the piano like 3 hours a day when I was still in the room. So, and that's one of the things that I'll always be grateful for, being taught how to play music and, well, I guess being touched by music altogether. So I'm going to ask you a totally different question today. And that's, what does music mean to you? And when I talk about all these things, authenticity, connection, emotions, memories, is there something for you which you can relate to, which also has given you that same vibe? I would like to know. I'm kind of curious about this, because I know for a lot of people, music really means a lot, but I believe that when it comes to, let's call it metalheads, hard rock fans, back in the days we talked about hard rock, and of course there are way other forms of metal, but it's, sort of like a name which describes in general what I'm talking about. And we don't just switch, we are basically loyal to the kind of music. And we, even when we don't know another, we usually are a community. So I'm not talking about where concerts where there are mosh pits and all that stuff, and probably they have some sort of, I don't know, band. But I'm talking about the other kind of music where, we all understand one another. So, again, do you have something similar? And what is it? And when we're talking about music, Does music have the same effect on you? What does it mean to you? And what do you do with it nowadays? Let me know. I want to say today, especially at that concert, was a very special day. The last couple of weeks have been very special. Despite that someone wanted to scam me, it doesn't mean that I don't listen to that music anymore, or I do not watch interviews anymore, because what was a relief actually was knowing that this was a scammer, because I was like, well, either I need to start groveling, which I don't want to, and make immense tons of excuses, or I have to accept the fact that someone is like, I don't like you because you put me on the timeout corner step, whatever. Just didn't seem right. It's about from heart to heart connection. And today I really felt that, and that was good. Well, if you want to share things, please do so. And remember, the Clarity Challenge is still about to start. I already talked twice about Clarity Challenge. I also wrote a blog post about it. And, well, keep something in mind, because I believe that we all need clarity in our lives one way or another. So, like I said, keep an eye on it.